Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I am going to be doing a tutorial for you today on this Daisy Bangle design. So it's a netting design that I'm going to show you how to place colors to make them look like flowers. So this one here is a little bit busy, but you can see the flower design of the different colors here, and then the green acting as leaves. I'm going to make it stand out even more for you, showing you how to do this netted bangle. And I'm going to be using fewer amount of colors, so it makes it a little bit more classy looking rather than kind of the juvenile look with the multicolors. But it's a fun bracelet that you can change up the design idea. You can also put a little crystal in the middle if you want a little bit of bling to go along with it as well. If you need any of these materials to do the Daisy Bangle, you can go below the video to the date steps when the video was published right below here. If you hit the show more or the down arrow on that, depending on the device you're looking at, you can get links to these different products online. The nice thing with this bracelet, you can really do it with any size seed bead that you're working with, and really the colors, you can go at it and have fun. I'll be working with the Toho brand seed beads as I work to complete this bracelet. The Toho seed beads that I've chosen to work with are a lot of the fun new colors. So I had Ashley, one of our team members, help me pick out colors for this bracelet design. I'm going to make the flowers stand out even more and add more green into it more as leaves. So the colors, again, these are 11Os, and this is the Toho brand. I'm using the Opaque Luster Mint and the Opaque Luster Sour Apple to be my leaves. The two different floral colors then that I'm going to be using are the Permafinish Peach Coral Matte and the Permafinish Polaris Matte. Those are going to be the flowers, and then the inside of the flower is going to be that Permafinish Saffron Matte. So matted for the flowers, shiny for the leaves. The whole thing is going to be held together with some Wildfire beading thread in 0.006, and because it has leaves, I am going to be using the green color. There is no clasp needed because it is a bangle. If you do want to do a clasp, you can always add that into the supply list. I'm going to be doing a size 10 needle for the project. You can use a 15 if you want, but a size 10 will fit through fine for the thread as well as the needle, and we're only passing back through each bead 2 times if we need to pass through them multiple. I have a needle nose plier sitting handy, and that's helpful because I like to use a thread zap or a thread burner. I use that to burn the thread off the spool as well as when I get to the ends to burn the knot that I create. When I burn off the spool, I like to flatten out the end of the thread in order to make it easier to thread my needle. To start this basic netting, we are going to be laying out piles of our beads, get 5 feet of beading thread onto the needle, and then I'll show you how we're going to begin the design and begin our color pattern to create this netted bangle bracelet. So the first thing to do after you have your colors laid out is to actually put on a stop bead. This bead will eventually come off the project. You put it on the project, take it down to about 3 inches to the end, then run your needle and thread back through the bead 2 times. So I have a bead here, Miyuki Zest color, that was from my last project that I'm going to be using. That's going to stop the beads from falling off the thread. To start out, we are going to be starting out basically with one of our patterns. The pattern that we are going to be working with right now is going to be a 1-3 pattern. We're going to do that 1-3 pattern 4 times to get this thickness. If you want to do a thicker bracelet, you can do it more than that. So when I say a 1-3 pattern, I'm going to use 1 of my darker green, 3 of my lighter green, 1 darker, 3 lighter. These are going to be my leaves. 1 darker, 3 lighter, 1 darker, and 3 lighter. I'm going to let those all fall down next to that zest colored stop bead. So I have 1, oh, and I missed 1 here, so I'll need to take back off and add those on. Hate when that happens, but it's a good thing to catch it before you get it on. And put that 1 back on, and sew back through those beads. Sometimes you can hold them that you can get them sewn on right away, sometimes you drop them. So I'll repeat that real quick. A lot of times I leave these little mistakes in to show that everybody makes mistakes. So once I have my correct pattern on my needle, I'm going to be turning this into a round section. To do so, take your thread and needle back to that starter bead and go through the whole way, coming out the second to last grouping of 3. I want to come out the second lighter green bead. That's just going to reinforce that beginning loop. This loop here is going to be the diameter, or the circumference rather, of the actual bracelet itself. So again, if you want to make it bigger, you're more than welcome to make it bigger, and you can do so by adding extra rotations of that grouping of 4. We're going to have fun now and actually get into the kind of design of the bracelet. So this is our original leaf section. What we're going to be doing now is going in and actually adding in some color. So you're going to get ready to add your purple or your pink color and then your green in the interior. So I'm going to begin with my pink bead. Coming out of that second green, I'm going to add pink, orange, pink, skip over to that next section of 3 beads and go through the middle bead again. And we're doing this in a round. Again, I'm going to add pink, orange, pink, go through that next middle light green bead and pull that. I'm going to move that stop bead just kind of down out of the way. From here, I'm repeating this pattern again 2 more times. Pink, orange, pink, go through that next green bead. And I'm always going through the middle green bead. There's the third one in, and they're sitting off to the side. Eventually I'm going to pull it so they sit on top of the previous row to get that nice tubular shape. On goes my next grouping of 3. And I'm going to go through the green bead that originally my thread was coming out of, and at the same time I'm going to step up through the pink bead and the orange bead and come on out. That's going to be my first rotation. As I pull and get it nice and tight, again that starts to take shape and it starts to have an actual area here where it's sitting right on top. From here, I'm going to get into adding the other side of the flowers and the other side of the petals, and we'll get ready then to add in our next color. When I'm coming out the center orange bead, I'm going to get ready to add in my next color, which is still going to be that pink because, excuse me, I want that daisy look. As I add in the next color, it's going to link between these groupings of pink and orange. Instead of adding an orange in the middle, I'm going to be adding the dark green. So I have pink, dark green, pink, pick up the next orange bead in line. Give a nice little tight pull. Next again, pink, green, pink, over to the next orange bead. Again, pink, green, pink, over to the next orange, and I have one more to do. Pink, green, pink. So I'm back to that first orange, and I'm going to step up to come out that green then. And give a nice tight pull, making sure that those beads that you just added get added on top of the previous row. When I turn to the side now, you can see that fun little collection of my flowers. So I've got my pink flower in there. As you turn around, you'll see that pink flower 4 times. Coming out that middle green bead now, I'll go back and do a whole section of my 3 lighter greens. So I have 1, 2, 3 lighter greens. Pick up the next row down, the middle bead, which is going to be that darker green. Again, 3 greens in that lighter color. go through the darker green. So you're always doing everything in a pattern of 4. 3 lighter greens through the darker green. 3 lighter greens through that first dark green, and then again out through that middle light green bead that we put on first. So the middle green of that grouping of 3. So you're always coming out the middle of the grouping of 3 from the previous row. From here now, I'm going to go in and add in another grouping of 3 going through that middle row. This time the grouping of 3 is going to be light green, dark green, light green. Pick up that middle green on the next row of 3. Again, light, dark, light. Through that next grouping of 3, that middle bead. Again, and you can see I'm turning it in my hand as I'm doing it. Light, dark, light. Through that next middle bead. And then again, light, dark, light. Through that next middle bead, and then doing the step up, I'm going to come out the center bead that I put on this row that I just did, which is going to be the darker green color. And then, ta-da, you have your first little flower and your first little collection of your leaves. From here, I'm going to get ready to do my purple flower. So the purple is going to be purple, orange, purple. And I'm going to pick up that next dark green bead. Again, purple, orange, purple. Go through the next dark green bead. Again, purple, orange, purple, through the next dark green. So it gets repetitive. And you'll always notice a crisscrossing action in the bracelet itself. As I pick up the last ones, I'm going to go through that dark green, come out through the orange here, and pull nice and tight. Now as I progress, I'm going to be adding my color with the dark green bead in between. So purple, dark green, purple, through my orange bead. As I spin around again, purple, dark green, purple, through the orange. Everything again is done as a set of 4. And at the end of each row, I give a nice tight little yank. Purple, green, purple, through the orange center bead. And one more, purple, green, purple, through that orange center bead. And then I'm going to step up, coming out through that dark green bead. Give a nice tight yank and get that nice and tightly so you don't see any extra thread. If you want to, some people will find it helpful to stick a pencil through the middle or a pen in the middle of the project or dowel rods. I usually, as you get going, it's easier and easier to hold on to. So from here now, I'm going to go back to my pattern of my 3 light greens. 1, 2, 3, going through the dark green bead. 1, 2, 3, of the light, swing back through the dark green. 1, 2, 3, dark green. 1, 2, 3, back through the dark green. And then always I'm done with those groupings of 3, so I'm going to go back and step up through the middle bead always of that first grouping of 3 that I put on. As I'm coming out of here and I have that green, I'm going to finish up my green leaf X, which is going to be between my flowers. So I switch back to light green, dark green, light green. After I finish this rotation of the light, dark, light, I'll step up. So I'm coming out of the dark green and back to the pink, and I just start the whole thing over again. So I'm adding in my 4 groupings, And anything that's tubular or in the rounds like this is going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to step up through that middle bead of the first section of 3. And as I'm coming out there then, you can see my 4 darker green beads. Those are the ones that I'm going to catch onto. And I'm going to begin now again with that pink, orange, pink, and onto the next dark green. At some point, excuse me, you will need to add thread onto this. Anything again in that tubular and round, it takes some time and it uses a lot of thread. The great thing about that is that the bracelet is really secure, but it does take some time. So coming around in a circle, I'm going to add in these beads. All around. And then you can see just the repetitiveness of the nature of it. The other way that this bracelet looks really nice is still doing this leaves, that you're doing a lot of green in between so that way it looks more floral. But you can also change up and use tons of different colors of flowers. It also looks nice if you use a yellow bead in the middle of the flower design, because then it looks a lot like the stamen in the middle of the flower. So I'm going to continue just building and building and building, and go ahead and continue on with my tubular flower bracelet. As you reach the end of your bracelet, you're going to realize that it has some spring to it. That stitch is why it's perfect in order to make it a roll-on bangle, because it has that little bit of a give that when you add it together, it expands a little bit bigger to make it on the wrist. You can see also the difference between 3 versus 4 rows. So here's 3 rows and it's not quite as thick as the 4 rows. So it's just a little bit thicker. I also was thinking as I was doing this, the time of the year, it would look really pretty with greens and then red with a little white or yellow as far as kind of a poinsettia look. So there's another idea for you. But what I'm going to be doing at the end here is connecting the 2 sides together. I finished out one of my rotations to actually be a beginning and finish out the pattern. What I'm actually going to do at this point is take the stop bead off the other side. And when I started the pattern here, I started and I forgot my green in there. So I'm actually going to take out my first row of the side where the starter thread is. If you need to do that, you can usually use your needle and kind of go back and pick through, taking that thread apart. Usually you're going to have 2 pieces of thread through certain areas. You just need to grab, find the right one, and then you'll be able to pull that apart. Also, it had 2 pieces of thread going through the start, so this is going to eliminate that. So I'm going to take back the whole way to the pink line basically here. And then you can see that lighter green there. I want to get a darker green in. So I'm going to pull this back. And when I have enough thread pulling that off to actually go through and use this thread on the other side to connect. My first side here is getting a little bit short, so you can kind of judge and see where your thread ends are. Here on this first side, I'll do one more rotation just with my pattern. And doing this bracelet made me realize all these fun different rotations and patterns that you could do and could get into, as far as doing spirals and just kind of going on from that daisy look and really having fun with this. Also, if you want to look at it with bigger beads, you can check out some of the other videos on this tubular netting. We have one that has cat's eye, both 4mm and 6mm with it, and kind of does that same idea. So here I have the pattern kind of, and I'm going to go till the end of the thread, and then because I have more thread on the starter side now, I'm going to use that starter side and take my thread off my needle. So I'm going through now and just going back and finishing up my pattern here. I'm just showing you again. When I did get to the point I needed to add thread one time, and unfortunately I completely forgot to do it on camera, but most of my videos show how to add thread. there's also a video specifically called How to Add Thread, which you can always search our YouTube channel specifically when you're on PotomacBeads or the youtube.com/PotomacBeads, and that will get you just videos that are produced by us. So my thread's getting really short. I'm going to stop there with that final rotation, come back to this starter side, grab another needle, and put it on my end. So if you wanted to, you could take it off the first starter end. I'm going to use a whole nother needle because that allows me to keep this needle on to sew back around that connection point a little bit. That way I won't see so much thread hanging out. And I'm just going to take my pliers here, flatten out that thread, thread my needle, and go back now to that connection point. So my connection point now, I'm going to be joining these two ends together. To join the two ends together, I've stopped here with that green combination with the light green and the dark green. What I'm going to be doing is coming out of this orange bead, I'm going to be picking up another pink, going over to the other side here, picking up one of the greens, sewing through the green on the other side, and pinking up a pink. From there, back to this pink and orange side and sew through the next orange. And you can see it's a little bit hard to see on this first one, but you can see those two ends getting added together and kind of the effect that it's having as these get added along the rotation here. So coming in then and kind of refocusing, you can see those two ends are joined together. Again, pick up another pink, go through the next green in line, which your thread will be coming out opposite. Pull that little thread tight, do another pink, and then you're going over to the next orange. And that's going to pull that link in even closer. Basically what you can see here is that you're seaming these two pieces together. Again, another pink gets added, go over to the darker green, rather than adding a dark green, add another pink, and sew through the next orange from that first side. And it's just getting seamed up the whole way as you go. So I'm coming out of the orange, grabbing another pink, going through that dark green, giving a nice tight pull. You can see that flower just coming together seamlessly. Add another pink and go through the orange. Ooh, just a pink and go through the orange. At this point, I have seamed the whole way around the bracelet. I still have my starter or my ending thread and then the starter thread that I put the needle on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew back through the project and that connection point one full time. So I'm going to go around in the circle here, getting that connection point and just kind of turning over the bracelet. It's a little bit hard to see, I know, but you're going through and just really reinforcing it. I'm just going the whole way around here, going up and down that zigzag. Down the pink and the orange, and then up the pink and the green. And as I make it the whole way around them, what I'm going to do is get those two thread ends together and tie a knot. And then I'm going to sew my thread ends back into the project a little bit. And as I do so, I'm going to knot off along the project. When I knot off along the project, I do little sewer's knots and have them then knotted and burned off. It's a little bit tricky there. You can kind of spin the bracelet so that way you have the other beads on the outside. Get these two thread ends together right there. I'm going to give a nice little knot. I'll do one and then one more, tying those thread ends together. And I'm going to take this thread and sew along the project. As I sew along the project, I'm just going right along the netting, so that way there's not any extra thread showing. And as I get a little bit further away from that knot, I'm going to do the sewer's knot, going underneath one of the bridge threads there, making a loop, and then sewing back through that loop and creating a knot. Again, I'll sew back through the project a little bit. And I love how kind of slinky this is. Sewing up through the project a little bit. And usually I do this about 2 or 3 times. Go underneath the bridge thread, make that loop, and sew through the knot. Excuse me, once I have that done, you can grab your thread zap or your thread burner, pull that thread kind of off to the side a little bit, go in with that zap, and burn that thread end down. I'll do the same thing with this starter thread, taking it back a couple beads, and then also this connection threads that I did here, I'll burn those down a little bit, and then burn them flush against the project. When I added the thread, I did it next to one of the darker beads because it's green, so I wanted to make sure that it would go into and kind of match with the project that you really want to see it hanging out there. There I have that kind of seamlessly in there. And I'll go through, stitch this in, and then I have the bracelet done. And the cool thing with the bracelet, like I said, it's a little bit expandable, so it looks really small, but I can actually roll it on my wrist. If you want to do it, you can do it with the 4 rows, you can do it with the 3 rows, and you can really play around with the different materials and what you do this bracelet with. So the Daisy Bangle can be done with all kinds of different beads, any size, really different shapes too can even be used. If you wanted to use a triangle bead or another 1-hole bead, you'd have fun with that as well. Again, if you need any of the materials, you can go back to the beginning of the video where I have the little date stamp also, and that show more button has them linked there as well. But like I said, have fun, use this as a creative resource to give you ideas and give you inspiration to then make your own and come up with your own things as well. As always, if you want to stay connected with me, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can share this video with friends that might think it's helpful, as well as stay connected with me at PotomacBeads.com and shop with us there online. You can also stay connected via Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, as well as the Facebook group we have for beading and jewelry making. Ask to become a member there, show us the different things that you make, what you create, ask questions, give inspiration to others, and soak up the inspiration there as well, because it's a really great resource. Thank you so much for watching, and have fun making the Daisy Bangle.